Welcome to the program. Now, since Nigeria's independence from British rule in 1960, the nation has been democratically led by Prime Minister Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa and 5 executive presidents to date. Apart from the First Republic, when the leaders were more or less aristocrats, especially in the northern region where feudalism was the prevalent system of governance, subsequent leaders have been ordinary folks who strove to become president of Nigeria through dogged determination or were thrown up by political circumstances. Now, in the current political conversation in Nigeria, the ruling party's presidential candidate, Bola Tinubu, is in the eye of the storm, just like others, just a few weeks after emerging victorious at the party's primary. The former governor of Lagos State in southwest Nigeria is accused of perjury and irregularities by some groups who are not so happy with what's been happening based on the information made available to them, saying that the documents he submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission seems to have, quote, some problems. Now, the issues generating debates and dominating public discourse across Nigeria, especially on social media, including his vice presidential nominee. Now, the question is being asked, what criteria is needed for Nigeria's president? What are the qualifications educationally? What is expected constitutionally for someone to emerge as a president of Nigeria? Well, for a better understanding of all of this, I have with me in the studio Adewale Ajadi, who is a UK-based Nigerian lawyer, a columnist, and also a public policy analyst. And also with me is Arise analyst, who is also a lawyer, Frank Tietie. And gentlemen, I want to welcome you to the show. I just want us to talk about this and educate the public, dispassionately, because I mean, we've seen all sorts of things being thrown at people, and the emphasis is not on any particular person. What does it take, Adewale Ajadi, to become the president of Nigeria, especially educationally?
Well, Section 131 of the Constitution is very clear. You should be up to 35 years old. You should be Nigerian by birth. You should have up to school certificate or equivalent in qualifications. I think that's the critical one. There's a fourth one. It doesn't strike me at the moment, but I remember.
Okay. I guess.
Fourth.
Which is the one that, it says 131, he has to be a citizen by birth. He has attained the age of 40 years. He is a member of a political party and sponsored by that political party. Yeah. And then, of course, that one you talked about, that he has been educated up to at least school certificate level or its equivalent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but with the not too young to run, it has been stepped down to 35 years.
35 years.
Yes.
Before this is before the amendment.
Yeah, exactly. That's the Constitution. That's Section 131 before the amendment in 2018.
Yes, thank you for pointing out that.
2018 amendment is 35.
Yes.
So those are the 4 criteria.
Yes, and I want to ask you, Frank Tietie, what does that equivalent mean? It says, or its equivalent. He has been educated up to at least school certificate level or its equivalent. I'm emphasizing on it because a lot of people don't emphasize on that.
The Constitution does answer the equivalent. And my learned senior here would bear me out and probably have to cite Section 318, which is very specific to that effect. But before I answer your question directly, let us be clear on something, that we should spare Nigerians of this hula baloo about educational qualification to become the president of Nigeria, because it is actually non-existent. It is by our Constitution, the minimum requirement is school certificate, and school certificate, the equivalent of school certificate means a whole lot of things. From TC2, grade 2 teacher certificate, to city and guild certificate, and then it goes down to a simple ability to speak, to write, and communicate in the English language to the satisfaction of the Independent National Electoral Commission. So when you look at the provisions, because the principle of lawmaking in Nigeria and in common law jurisdictions actually is, when you have a statute, because of the ambivalent nature of words, the Constitution or that statute has to have an interpretation section that interprets key words. So school certificate is clearly interpreted in Section 318, and it states to include primary 6 school leaving certificate. It also includes, attending courses, any kind of courses that are acceptable to the Independent National Electoral Commission for up to 1 year. It also includes, interestingly, a person who has spent time working in any area of the public service or private sector for at least 10 years. So it's so nebulous. And then the most interesting part of it is that any other kind of qualification that the Independent National Electoral Commission considers to be good enough to become Nigeria's president. So if you see these qualifications, that these equivalents that have been so watered down, you wonder why there is so much unnecessary, trouble about qualification to contest for Nigeria's president. I think the debate should be about whether we should raise the bar. Right now, it's very low. I mean, the lowest of the low person who, in terms of qualification, who can simply speak English. And even if the English is not good enough, it's not what we used to call simple and correct English. So long as INEC is satisfied that this is good English, let him go, and that's all. Okay.
And Adewale, why do you think that there was this provision of that omnibus part of that section D, 131 subsection D there? That it looks like an omnibus provision or its equivalent. What do you think was the thinking of the writers of this constitution?
I think it's the genius of the writers. I respect my colleagues' remarks, but it's the genius, because this is a democracy. We should not exclude people from participating or serving their country because of arbitrary levels of qualification. Because someone is not qualified or certified does not mean they're not competent. There is an obsession with certification in Nigeria that makes us arguably certifiable because we are so obsessed. We need people with integrity. We need people who are representative of our people. There are many of our people that don't have these qualifications but have capacity.
Especially, traditional rulers, for example.
Absolutely.
In our communities, I wonder many of them, if they do have certificates.
Absolutely. So when we reduce participation by making it such an elitist endeavor to represent your people, then we are going towards a different kind of democracy.
So, in other words, it becomes undemocratic and exclusionist.
It does.
Is that what you're saying?
It does. So, I think the genius of the drafters of the Constitution is to make sure that the everyman can be the president of Nigeria. And you won't be surprised I'm saying that as an Ibadan man, because that's what we believe in my own place, where I come from. That your head has to be an everyman. It has to be representative of your people. And
so in other words, Frank Tietie, you may have a professor who has the highest qualification educationally, but if the people don't like him and they prefer someone who hasn't got certificates, will the law still allow such a person to be president
Nigeria,
of the country?
Yes, so long as he can speak the English language, and that's the problem. It discriminates and or necessarily exalts the English language, but there is a reason for that. First, we are a common law country, we're a Commonwealth country, we have been colonized by the British, and our lingua franca is basically English, in addition to Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba that are used as languages of lawmaking in the National Assembly. But can we really credit ingenuity to the drafters of this constitution? There was a time, Tony Blair, it became a major issue that Tony Blair didn't have the base qualification, the traditional qualification of prime ministers in the UK has been first class, and the usual courses of politics, philosophy and economics.
And then going to the Oxford,
and then you must after yes. And then the issue was whether Tony Blair had a 2-1 or a 2-2. It became a major political issue. We in a modern world, we should set standards. If we didn't aim to set standards, why did the Constitution reduce it to school certificate? But if it was just school certificate, it would have been understandable. But to now say that, to now reinterpret by the Constitution itself, Section 318, I had to bring it because if we said some of these things, people didn't believe. You said, look, the ability to read, write, understand, and communicate in the English language to the satisfaction of the Independent National Electoral Commission and any other qualification acceptable to the Independent National Electoral Commission. So if the INEC chairman says, look, I like the way you conduct yourself, and I understand that you've been attending.
A note from your
yes, and that settles it.
Or pastor or imam.
That settles it. So look, and it is right. And again, please, let us spare these candidates of the trouble of having to prove whether they are qualified or not. They are eminently qualified by the Constitution. The problem would be if nobody bothers them to submit any certificate. That's by our law. Nobody. They simply need to go to INEC and say, look, consider me, I have qualified, I've worked here, I've attended these courses, I've done this, I know how to use the computer, and I can speak English. They are not bound to submit any certificate whatsoever. However, if they submit a certificate that is fake, that may be a problem. That can amount to a criminal offense. So let us stop this idea of making so much ado about nothing concerning qualifications of our candidates, because they are eminently qualified indeed.
Okay. And Adewale, he raised something very critical. It's time for reforms. We need to change this because of the times we found ourselves. If we are to amend this, or let me start by asking, why has it been difficult for those who have been amending the Constitution over the years to think of tinkering with this? Why haven't they tinkered with it? And if we are, what should be the base qualification for Nigeria's president going forward?
Well, I actually disagree. Like I said, I think fundamentally we have to accept something, that competence is far more important than certificate. There should be tests about competence. What is your competence in understanding the official language? What is your competence in giving directives? What's your competence in reading official documentation? These are things that are eminently testable. But once you start to negate the capacity of citizens of this country from being presidents of this country by virtue of some kind of elitist standard of qualification or certification, then we introduce a powerful caste and class system.
So, for example, the proposal of having a degree is elitist. Is that what you're saying?
It is profoundly elitist. Okay. It's because let's.
I can see you want to disagree, but let's allow him to learn.
Let's look at it. The kind of resources. Not everybody has the resources to go to university. Not everybody has the access to go to university. There's so many barriers structurally in our country. Does that mean that that person does not have the character, the commitment, the diligence, and the competence? We know of people who haven't got school cert that have built national businesses, even international businesses, and run them effectively. Some of them in extremely successful circumstances.
With several professors in their employ.
Yes. So are we saying, and in the England that was used as an example, I'm sorry, the example is slightly misguided, because even in England, there's something called national vocational qualification. It is recognition that people can have competencies that are not certified automatically by education. Having said that, the problem in England is that it's a class system. Do we want that same kind of class system here? The same kind of old school network? I mean, the reality is we've got it bad enough. We as lawyers have it bad enough. We have a situation whereby less than 500,000 or maybe it's even 200,000 of us maintain access to the law. We use Latin, we use all of those things to disqualify people from understanding what is going on in the courts. Should we bring that into the political arena? We have a challenge of people voting. We have a challenge of young people participating. We want to raise the bar that will reduce their participation. I mean, I think in terms of public policy systems,
okay.
I think
what are the reforms you're proposing?
I think we should be realistic. Well, any senior practices in England, in London, he knows that modern societies require enormous competencies. Let's even go back to classical philosophy. Plato believes that the philosopher king should be the best of all, the most intelligent, the most educated. And then we cannot run away from the fact that we live in a society that is, that operates with a level of class system, you know. So there's, and then the best of the best should actually provide leadership. And we cannot just, as a country, legislate, mediocrity, and as we have done in section 318, not section 131, because what most Nigerians don't know that section 318 is the interpretation of section 131. The D. Now, what we should aspire is that, it's okay. After all, we've had farmers that have become presidents of the United States. We run a presidential federalist government in Nigeria. We've had farmers that have become president of the largest, possibly, the country we copied presidentialism from. Yes. But look at the modern time that we're living in, where international relations matter. And again, we're talking about the concentration of powers in one particular individual. We're not even talking about the United Kingdom that has a prime minister that needs to handle government and reports to the ceremonially to the Queen.
To Her Majesty.
You know, we're looking at a president that has to take decisions based on serious information, and you think that the competence of that person doesn't matter? He should only.
So what are you proposing?
Minimum of a university degree, or its equivalent, and equivalent as we have maybe probably HND because they're of the same class, and then not less than a degree. Not less than look. If you
aren't you disqualifying a bunch of Nigerians who don't
not
have
at all?
Let me HND or degrees, but may be competent, like he has said, to be able to govern.
Consider the intricacies, the scientificity of governance in terms of matters of economics, in terms of matters of international relations. These are things that requires a lot of technical understanding. So you, of course, you can say, oh, yeah, as a president, you have ministers, but you see, the acumen to be able to supervise ministers and to expect deliverables is not something that comes by just being able to speak the English language just the same way the Constitution says.
And I come to you again, Adewale. Why then do we have the office of the president being given some accompaniments, like having special advisors, having senior special advisors and all of that? Isn't it the intention of those who factor this into the Constitution that the president may not have all the knowledge, and that's why he needs all those SAs, SSAs, and other technical advisors here and there?
Unfortunately, my learned colleague has made the mistake most of us Nigerians do. We confuse certification with excellence. Certification is not even competence. You can pass an exam, and I know many people who have passed exams. I actually don't practice in the United Kingdom. But you can pass an exam and be totally incompetent. We have seen incompetent doctors. We have had incompetent people of different kinds. It's a different thing for you to be educated and certified. It's a different for you to apply it. And like I said, I'm not saying that they should not be competent people. But we cannot substitute certification with competence. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. Yes, we have often thought it's the same, but we every day see it's not the same. The critical issue is someone that Nigerians have trust in, that has the judgment, has the bully pulpit, and the charisma to mobilize them for a common purpose, to transform our country into a great nation. And that has nothing to do with what school you went to. Or where you
and I guess that's where we have those certificated illiterates word coming into the Nigerian lexicon. But let's help the Independent National Electoral Commission out with what's on ground now, and people saying that Tinubu has not submitted a certificate. Some people saying that his school has already said that he's certificated, and then we're hearing that his deputy did not submit any certificate. I want to ask you, as lawyers, why is it difficult for someone to go back to his or her school after losing certificates to get another one or a means of identification by the school to say that, look, yes, we certify that this person graduated from here, he got his certificates, but the certificates may have got lost or got burnt or something like that. Instead, we keep seeing these politicians going to the courts to swear an oath to an affidavit. Why?
But first and foremost, let us appreciate that they have not run foul of the law. They are perfectly in order by virtue of the Constitution. You don't have to present any certificate. You only need to say, look, I'm competent to run it.
So why do you go and get an affidavit?
Oh yes, because affidavit is an attestation to truth on the honor of the person, and based on the oath law, and anything that amounts to the contrary, which is false, can be the offense of perjury. So it's important that you go to affidavit. You swear to an affidavit. It shows that the person actually is saying the truth, and that should end it there. I think we should. The INEC's
job has been made much easier.
Much easier, and even if anybody, it's okay, and it's safer. If I make counsel to anybody who has doubt about his certificates, I will simply say, depose an affidavit, say that you are qualified, say that you understand English, so that you went to such and such a school and you don't have a certificate. Simple and that. There is no controversy whatsoever.
Anyone who wants to doubt it can go to the courts.
Yes. Again, this is important because we can't talk down on certification, because what's the point of going to school? Discipline, standards. And I mean, we don't run a monarchy. We don't have a king who can now say do this or do that or whatever. There has to be, you see, the question is that, look, you don't, what kind of society do we aspire to become? The one that says, oh, we don't have to have standards, we don't have to have predictability as to what to expect from people that govern us? I mean, you should have some basic training, for goodness sake. Okay. And if I must say, because you brought a political angle to it, someone like Bola Ahmed Tinubu is eminently more than qualified, more especially when he attended university. I mean, Chicago State University, for example, that has even attested in writing that he did attend. It doesn't matter how he got the qualification, so long as he attended the university, he attended an institution, you know. So that
some even said that even an attestation by Mobile, where he had worked, that he worked there for so years is enough for
we are reducing our very serious campaign, supposed campaign issues. We are reducing them to very low levels. These men are qualified, fair and square.
Oh, okay, so let's go on to other issues. It's been settled educationally now. The constitution says that for someone to become a president, he has to be a citizen of Nigeria and all of that and so on, and win certain number of states and all of that. 2/3 of the states, the 36 states and FCT. Why do you think there was that provision there, which makes it 24? Actually, you must win 24 states out of 36 and FCT. Why do you think?
Well, you know, the history of this thing is fascinating. You can go to the Shehu Shagari 12 2/3 issue, but people get distracted in a way, I think, with that. The essence of it has been these mechanisms, these systemic mechanisms to make Nigeria a nation, to make us interdependent, to make sure that the president has a broad suite of the population supporting, so that you don't have a president who just wins his region and has a numeric advantage. It becomes the tyranny of the majority. It then means that you have no interest in other geopolitical zones. I keep on saying, these are geniuses of the drafters of the Nigerian Constitution. These elements, it forces us to have people who are able to connect with the cross-section of our society beyond their own home regions, beyond their own ethnic groups, beyond their own constituencies.
Okay.
And that's very powerful.
And what do you have to add to that?
If the Nigerian Constitution is a very faulty document, no doubt. We have managed it. It has a lot of gaps, political gaps. It's created a lot of problems. And that's why we keep beseeching the courts to interpret those conflicts. However, it is clear, and my learned senior is correct to say that the aspiration of a multi-ethnic, multi-religious country like Nigeria is for a popular president to emerge from every election, and not for one section of the country that has a large number of persons that can to vote. So since we don't run the electoral college system as it is in the United States, which also serves the same, to a large extent serves the same purpose, is that the Nigerian constitution makes it that there should be a fair representation of the victor in at least 2/3 of the states. Okay. And interestingly, even though we've not had a debacle as we had in 1979 during the Shagari and Awolowo, when Awolowo approached the court, we may be having such a scenario in 2023, given the fact that this may be the first time we will have
something like a runoff.
Yes, a runoff, because the established tradition of a two-party state that we run is about to be
threatened.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Lastly, before we round off this part of the program, I want to talk about the other part that says that he must be a citizen of Nigeria by birth. Don't forget, the candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, is not a Nigerian by birth. He was given birth to in the Cameroonian province, then before that province eventually became part of Nigeria by his parents. And everything surrounding this has been tested and it's been deemed fit that he is a Nigerian. But some people are finding it difficult to still agree that Atiku Abubakar is a full-blooded Nigerian, and they keep disturbing the courts based on this. Why do you think that these Nigerians are dissatisfied with Atiku Abubakar's Nigerianness, if I may call it that way?
Well, I think it's a distraction. The law is what the Supreme Court decides it is. I can safely say every constitution in the world is interpreted by the courts of the land. And once the courts have decided that this is the interpretation they're going to give to it, as we're seeing in the United States, you can't go back on that. You can't run that if the Supreme Court decides that. So as far as I'm concerned, once the court decides that, that's the end of the matter.
Yeah, and not many young Nigerians actually know that the Sardauna province, which used to be a part of the Cameroons, actually became a part of Nigeria following a plebiscite upon which that part is part of Adamawa said. I know, based on texts that I've read, how it took Sir Ahmadu Bello and then the then Prime Minister Abubakar Tafawa Balewa to try to woo this part of Cameroon into Nigeria. We did everything. Now, how would people now be saying that they should stop someone from that part from identifying himself as part of Nigeria, being Nigerian?
The controversy, which is yet to settle, is that at the time, there is no doubt about the fact that Atiku Abubakar is a Nigerian. But when the Constitution says citizen by birth, when he was born, because first and foremost, before we go into that, let us establish that the issues of citizenship are matters of fact, are not really matters of law, because the Constitution simply says you are a citizen if you're born in Nigeria, if one of your parents, even if you are born outside of Nigeria, and any of your parents or your grandparents is a Nigerian, you are a citizen. So the facts will eventually come to Atiku Abubakar's rescue. The controversy lies in the sense that at the time he was born, the part where he was born, that part wasn't part of Nigeria at that time.
Yeah.
However, could there be a fact that any of his relations as to parents or grandparents is a Nigerian at that time because belonging to a contiguous community that was inside the geographical location of Nigeria,
which was separated just by colonial creation?
So it's a matter of fact, and I don't think that has been an issue whatsoever, because the Vice President Atiku Abubakar has actually crossed that part several times.
And that's why we keep, after having been Vice President of Nigeria, why should Nigerians be approaching the court to seek an interpretation to that? Well, good for the candidates of the Labour Party and then maybe NNPP. They don't have so much disturbance on those areas. But as we try to round off this conversation now very quickly, what should the candidates focus on so that they don't get distracted by all of these petitions here and there and certificates, or whether you're Nigerian or not? How should they approach those issues very quickly?
I think we're seeing a flaw in the candidacy across the board. They have not inspired people by their visions yet. If we are subsumed in substantial issue, we will not be distracted by marginal
issues. That's because they are still doing their manifestos. Trying to cook those manifestos. Because they still have a timeline between now and September 28th when the primaries, when the campaigns will begin. Very quickly. Sorry.
They're not focusing on us then. They have to focus on us, the voters. We don't have any deadline. We need to be inspired right now. You can't postpone the inspiration, the motivation, the mobilization.
All right, very quickly. Quick advice. Think of how to unite a fractious country as we are now.
Absolutely.
Think of how to give us an economic blueprint that will create jobs, and then the most important, give a sense of security to Nigerians. And that means you have to localize security to the extent that people will join hands with government to ensure that Nigeria is safe, every corner of Nigeria is safe. So when these three issues are tackled, are actually brought to the forefront by the candidates, which Peter Obi is actually making inroads, he has been debating that before he declared for presidency. But if the two major political parties will focus on that, and then we'll be having an interesting
and several
campaign.
Other political parties too, because we have 18 of them. Well, gentlemen, we must thank you so much for dispassionately looking at this, and I must commend your courage, because some people would have started this conversation with the controversial issues, but you've been very, very dispassionate about it, and we must thank you for enlightening Nigerians. Adewale Ajadi is a lawyer, a Nigerian-based lawyer based in the UK, and he's joined us to take a look at this. And of course, our own Frank Tietie is also a lawyer and a Arise News analyst. Thank you for joining us to take a look.